We have already discussed stereotype. So stereotype is a cognitive framework where we become a prisoner within our own thoughts and beliefs and ideas, right? So if we become a prisoner within our own thoughts and beliefs, that itself gets directed towards another group, which can be a caste stereotype. If you see our Indian conventional or traditional society, it's divided into these Brahmins, these Kshatriyas and Shudras and etc. So that means we divide the entire socio-cultural parlance into different castes, alright? And if you belong to that particular caste, you are entitled only to get those few privileges, and if you get some extra privilege, then I might become a very strong factor of your hostility. So this becomes one of the very significant factor of caste stereotype, right? Religious or community stereotype. So it can be a kind of a stereotype like Muslim or Sikh or Jain or Bengali or something like that, Marwari. So these are the religious communities where we have certain cognitive beliefs and certain ideas about these communities, and these are certain preconceived notions which are derived from very superficial fleeting experiences, and that is generalized to the entire community. Alright, community stereotype can also be like, say for example, children from the red light colony, LGBT community, or say for example any kind of community where kids of low socioeconomic brackets are given special privileges and special education for their own upliftment and empowerment. So they are communities, alright? Now anybody else who belong to the other group might feel hostile towards their entitlement and privileges which they enjoy. Gender stereotype. We have certain preconceived notions that males and masculine gender is likely to have such and such characteristic features, and they are only entitled for such and such privileges. Alright, and the female ones are only entitled to have these few privileges if there is any kind of audacity that is shown by any feminine entity across the country which violates the stereotype of that specific feminine context, that is rejected, that person is isolated. So we have this gender stereotype which is very common in our day-to-day life as well, alright? So we have to break. We have this political stereotype. So since India is a very politically sensitive country, cousins who have been very close to each other since childhood can become hostile enemies just because of the fact that they are followers of different ideology and followers of different political parties. So these are certain stereotypes. Make sure that combating of any prejudice starts from here. That is, we generalize one individual to that particular community. It is almost like that principle of stimulus generalization. So if I have a very strong negative attitude towards that particular community, why shouldn't I give some kind of respect and regards to that individual? Maybe that person is representing that community towards which I am prejudiced, but that individual can have certain set of qualities and certain assets which are admirable. Alright? So in order to break the prejudice, in order to break the cycle of this vicious cycle of prejudice, we need to stop this stimulus generalization. That is, any individual from this particular community whom I have some kind of subverting or a disgraceful attitude, They are all like that. So it's an out-group illusion where all individuals in the out-group possess negative qualities. May not be. So in this context, the individual might prove something exceptional, despite the fact that she or he belongs to that particular community. So this is something which is very important to understand, that this breaking the cycle, we have already entered into combating prejudice. So if you have understood the causes of prejudice, you can able to understand how to combat prejudice as well. So we need to break the cycle of prejudice by giving regards to individual qualities, not necessarily always generalizing it to the other, to the community which she or he represents. All right. Now we need to sometimes learn not to hate. Learn not to hate. Okay, so in context to that child which I was referring to, that all of a sudden when he came to class 7, the history book consisted of lessons from Islamic history, and since he picked up certain social cues which were extremely laden by certain amount of prejudiced beliefs and opinions which he collected from his great-grandmother and grandmother, you need to be an antagonistic role model. That means I became an antagonistic role model from which he acquired the prejudiced opinion. That means, say for example, I say that, listen, see, I have a friend who is from this particular community, who is from Islam, but he is one of my best friends, and he invites me during the Eid time, and we enjoy biryani together, and he comes to our house after Bija Dashami or during Diwali time, and we enjoy our lunch together, and he is really an admirable person in my life. Or maybe she is also a very strong, admirable person. I had a teacher I give an example of a teacher who have been from that specific community, but that teacher have been so very enriching in her academic resources that maybe without that person we wouldn't, our entire academic enrichment process would remain incomplete rather. I gave certain other examples that we are all fond of certain restaurants, say for example Shiraj or Arsalan. So we are fond of, right? So when was the last time you had biryani from Shiraj? So he said that at least twice a month dad gets biryani for us from Shiraj. So I asked about the cook, what this restaurant, where is it located, and who are the ones who runs this restaurant company. So every other antagonistic messages which are not in favor of prejudice but against prejudice can actually make the person learn not to hate, the way he picked up cues undeliberately from those two emotionally significant figures. In the similar way, that learning can get unlearned when new cues get imbibed from another role model. Here I don't mean that I am his role model, but a person whom he can refer to for evaluating his beliefs and opinion towards a specific group or community towards whom he is prejudiced. Alright? So this learning not to hate is very much important. Another is, if direct intergroup conflict is responsible for developing prejudice, direct intergroup contact is very much essential for breaking the prejudice as well. So this direct intergroup contact, so it can be a kind of a contact hypothesis. A contact hypothesis which states that if the members of both the groups are in formal contact with each other, formal or professional or any kind of secondary contact with each other, that is likely to invoke certain possibility of interaction, and that can lessen the prejudice. exactly what happens in the Wagah border. I don't know whether it's happening right now or not during this COVID-19 phase, but that Wagah border ceremony, despite of LOC violation, despite of several pact violation, that ceremony in the Wagah border is an example of contact hypothesis, where some representatives of both the countries are in a harmonious contact with each other through certain gestures. All right. Another group of social psychologists claim that it is just not contact which is sufficient. It should be an extended contact. So this is called extended contact hypothesis, which states that if we can able to make an exclusive friendship or a relational context. Say I say that I had a teacher who is from that community. I had a friend who is from that, and he was one of my best friends. Okay, I still have a very close female friend right now who is from Islam community, and we get along very well during times of any kind of occasions on our behalf and on their behalf. All right. I'm just waiting for her to get married because I will be participating in the wedding ceremony and I will eat a lot. All right. So this is something which is an extended contact hypothesis, where not only it is just a mere contact between two groups, but it is an extended contact where the relational context would be given much respect and regards. All right. Another very important point that is to be noted is equal distribution of resources. Equal distribution of resources across different groups. Say for example, if my dad believes in certain political ideology or he has more inclination towards a political party, and that's the reason why if we are entitled to get 15 kg rice and lentils from the ration shop very gleefully and without any effort, and another person maybe from the same group or community does not have that leverage because that person is not following the principles of that ideology, that can create a lot of hostility, because difference in ideology is our democratic right. But because of the ideology, if I am bereft of certain privileges or certain leverage or certain sovereign rights which I am entitled to, not getting those privileges can make my in-group turn hostile towards the out-group who are getting that privilege. Alright? Because that is a scanty resource which we all want at this moment, because it's a time of very strong urgency to gain access towards these resources. So if we can able to have a proper distribution of resources and can treat every group and community with some respect and regards, that every group can have its individual convention, tradition, customs and beliefs, and with full respect, if we trust our group, and as the way we trust our group, if we can able to extend this trust to other groups, we have full assurance to live with harmony. With this, I close this chapter. In the next video, I will start with the new chapter. Thank you. Stop.